Uncover the wisdom of the feminine through soulful conversations on spirituality, healing, relationships, self-leadership, sovereignty, and so much more. I'm your host, Tamar, Gail, feminine embodiment facilitator, feminine arts mentor, and soul tantrika. In this podcast, my goal is to take you deeper into the world of the feminine, stepping more into your feminine pleasure, power, authentic truth, and your sovereignty. Welcome to the Feminine Codes podcast. Today I'm having a beautiful conversation with Josh Tomeoni. Josh is a men's coach, father, he's a financial advisor, and he's also the host of the Derelict podcast. For Josh, after walking through a deeply painful divorce and identity collapse in his mid-30s, he rebuilt his life emotionally, spiritually, and financially. Now he's helping men do the same thing. His coaching, his podcasts, and his books, including The Derelict, The Fight, Fail, Find Manhood, and The 5 Traps Men Face in Divorce, serve a growing tribe of entrepreneurial men who are navigating also divorce, midlife, and the search for authentic masculinity. Known for blending raw honesty with humor and depth, Josh really speaks powerfully to men who are feeling stuck, lost, isolated, and he shows them how to reclaim their voice, brotherhood, and their purpose. And in today's episode, what we cover is so important. We have spoken about how modern men are starving for authentic connection to their own healthy masculine polarity. We also cover why masculine healing supports women's sovereignty rather than threatening it. And we speak about how reclaiming embodied manhood creates the safety, presence, and reverence that allows the feminine to fully unfold. There is so much juice in this conversation. So let's dive in. Today, I am having a very special conversation with Josh Tomeoni, and he does men's work. And I really felt like this was going to be a beautiful conversation around the masculine energy and the feminine energy that I work with. Josh, thank you so much for coming on. I know that you are all about, like, you have the same sense that masculine energy and healing, the healthy masculine energy is directly connected to the healed sacred feminine energy as well, and they're inseparable. I read that your mission is to help men really rise from the ashes, not with the fake positivity, so to speak, but with truth, with emotional grit, with the really standing in the fire. And I think that this is what we're needing so much of in the world right now, for men and for women. So I would love to ask, how did you get started in this work? Like, what really brought you into working with men in this way?
Thank you for asking, and thanks for having me on the show, Tamar. I felt the same way. So I don't, just like you don't include everybody as a guest on your podcast, I don't guest on everybody's podcast because I want to make sure that the flow and the energy is there, and I could sense it from you. So that's why I'm really excited for this conversation. So to answer your question, I work with divorced or divorcing men. That's exclusively who I work with. And divorced men have a very interesting experience with the loss of their true masculinity and trying to refine that and rebuild that within themselves. A lot of men lost it somewhere along in their marriage. And then when they get divorced, it's kind of this moment where either they're going to find it or they're not. They're either going to dig into all their negative tendencies or they're going to try to find their authentic masculinity, or maybe a combination of both. So the reason I mentioned that first and didn't answer your question first is because the answer to your question is the same for me. So why do I work with those guys? Well, because I went through a divorce and I thought it was the end of my life. I thought it was the end of my world. My wife and my kids were everything to me at the time. I honestly didn't know how I was going to continue on. I've told people before that honestly, if I didn't have kids, I don't know if I'd be here today. That's how much it just wrecked me. I would never do anything to hurt myself because of my children, but without my children, I don't know. I can't promise that I would still be here. I don't know. And what I found going through that process is that really shook my masculinity, my core masculinity, trying to figure out like, who am I, right? That mission, that purpose. Now, it also happened to coincide with me getting into the middle-aged years as well. So kind of the typical midlife crisis of go through the divorce and figure out all these things about yourself that you never knew for the previous however many years. So that's how I got into it. I went through this really nasty divorce. It took a long time. It was very contentious. And it really shook me because I realized that I had been living as a codependent chameleon for a long time, one that had lost my true sense of masculinity. And I firmly believe, and not everybody's going to believe this, but I firmly believe that at its core, masculinity is a beautiful thing. And at its core, femininity is a beautiful thing. I actually don't believe in the term toxic masculinity, just like I don't believe in the term toxic femininity, even though no one ever says that term. They only say toxic masculinity for some reason. Don't know why. But here's the reason I don't believe it. I don't believe that masculinity or femininity have any toxicity within them whatsoever. I believe that people can have toxicity and they can do negative things and they can do evil things, whether they're men or women, but that has nothing to do with our authentic selves. It has nothing to do with who we are, either who we are as a person or who we're created to be or who our universe, higher power, God, whoever you want to say made us or created us or is a part of us or whatever you believe in that, it's all the same to me. There's nothing wrong in that. It's all beautiful. It's all beautiful. And I think that we live in a space right now where a lot of negative terms are thrown around and they're very generic. It's like, well, all women are fill in the blank, all men are fill in the blank, or masculinity is toxic, evil, chauvinistic, etc. And none of that's true. What it is it's all insecurity, trauma, pain, etc. that we're passing on to somebody else. But that's not our true selves. That's not our authentic selves doing that. That's not our masculinity or femininity. So that's something that I realized going through that process myself is I realized, wow, I'm not really digging into who I am authentically. I don't want to make it sound like I never lived an authentic moment in my life. There's plenty of good things in my life. I did plenty of good things, but I really wasn't in the core of like who I've learned to become over the last several years.
I really like how you put that there's, and I think I've never heard it explained that way, that there's not, or talked about it in that way. I guess that's rather how I should say it, that there is no such thing as toxic or unhealthy. But when you explain what you mean by that, it's really so true because there's not. I hear so many women and I see it a lot. I actually just had this conversation with somebody how luckily like they're not women that are in my life, but I've seen their writings on it of bashing men all the time and how all men are toxic and ignorant. And to be honest, I am an advocate for men. So because I really feel like I feel the untruth in what they're saying. And I feel like it comes from their own wounding, whatever that is, that makes them see all men in this toxic way, that they think all men are bad because they're not receiving the kind of love. And there's a lot of things that have happened to women, just like, to be honest, there's a lot of things that have happened to men. Like, there are a lot of men that go through a divorce that are completely just like downtrodden and everything's taken from them. And it's I meet a lot of men like that, so I have a very different experience of men, and I see this side of men and I see how there's a lot of hurt and wounding on both sides. And so for me, this is why it was so important for me to have you on today. It wasn't just I wanted to have a great conversation. it's important for us to have this conversation and to talk about this. And I thank you for sharing your story on what led you to this. There are a lot of men starving for connection, just like there are women starving for connection. And you work with men. So would you mind speaking to this a little bit about like the desire from men today who are really desiring that authentic intimacy and authentic connection with the feminine?
Absolutely. Yeah. You said several amazing things that I want to touch on real quick. So
Yes, I'm open all ears.
one thing is so sometimes people will the thing that I said earlier about how masculinity is not toxic, femininity is not toxic. Some people might say, "Oh, this is just a linguistics game we're playing." But here's the reason it's more important than linguistics. The more I tell myself that all women are or all men are, even if I don't say it out loud, even if I just think it. Like here's an example. I've had people in the past that have gotten on this train of sending me random reels on Instagram or social media or wherever. And it's always the same theme. What I always find interesting is to find out like what's the theme of what's going through this person's head. And I had this one a while back that I kept getting all of the theme was basically women messing up relationships
Mm.
from a guy. And it was just this over and over and over and over again. So after several of these, I called him out on it. I was like, you send me the same thing every single time. Even if your belief isn't that women are messing up relationships, the fact that you're watching the reels, it's showing up on your page, and then you're sharing it with somebody else that you think it's funny, means that you believe it, whether you admit that you believe it or not. And that is going to impact how you treat females. Because if I'm constantly watching this stuff and I'm putting it out there and I'm laughing at it, oh yeah, it's just all a big joke. It is, but you believe it.
Mm.
And then you come to me and you say, I don't understand. Why can't I attract a beautiful, amazing woman into my life? Gee, I wonder. No idea. Yet we do it and it's so insidious. It just creeps below the surface. We don't even realize most of the time we're doing it. I catch myself often, and this is why I have coaches in my own life, because I want to make sure that somebody catches me when I do it. I ask all my friends like to keep me accountable of this stuff because
Mm.
I don't want to be that guy. I
Mm.
don't want to be the guy that even though it's funny and I like joking around about this aspect, I don't want to fill my head with that because then that's what I'm going to attract. And the
Yeah.
same thing happened. I'll give you another story. This also happened a while back. This was a friend of mine, and she so much going for her. Like, great career, did really well, super nice, super friendly, super fun, super attractive, kept in great shape. Like, she was the package, right? Mid 30s, like, just fantastic. And she would come to me over and over and over again, talking about what she wanted in a man and then all the losers that she kept attracting to herself. And it was just night and day from what she wanted to what she kept attracting. And I had, I encouraged her multiple times, like, there's one common denominator here. Like, I know that this is hard and you don't want to hear this, but there's one common denominator. So if you as a person keeps attracting all this energy, you're doing something to attract this energy. And that could be as simple as her meeting with all her girlfriends and being like, oh, all men are dogs and all men only want sex and all men do this and all men do that. First of all, that's not true because all men don't do anything. But secondly, it doesn't even matter if it's true or not. What matters is the fact that that's what you're convincing your brain is true. So it's the
Mm.
same thing as just even using the term toxic masculinity assumes that there's a portion of masculinity that's toxic. And here's the deal that most people don't want to admit, especially if they're living with blinders on, which, by the way, I've lived with blinders on many times in my life. I'm not like saying I'm, I haven't done this before. But here's the deal. What I've found, especially with women, this has been my experience working with men. What I found with women, the ones that dig their heels in deeper with the whole toxic masculine thing or that all men are blank, there's two things. One, you already mentioned. Usually it's coming from a big place of hurt and pain and experience and things, honestly, that they need to work through, whether
Mm.
that's with a therapist or a coach or by themselves or a mentor, a spiritual guide, whatever it is. Like there's stuff that's keeping them that's holding them back, which is really just hurting them. It's not hurting any of the guys, because we don't want to touch them. Because if they come to us, we're like, yeah, you're not attractive. Sorry, you have all this shit that you got to deal with. Go deal with your stuff first, and then maybe we'll talk. But here's the deal. Those women, the ones that dig even deeper in that, what they need most, and this is the last thing they need, they think they need, what they need most in their life is healthy masculinity. That's what they need most.
Yeah.
Because if they had healthy masculinity in their life,
they would know.
Allowing their femininity to bloom and open and blossom and do everything that beautiful, femininity is the most beautiful thing on the planet. But the thing that brings it out the most is healthy masculinity. And we live in a world where feminism has made a lot of changes since it first came out. And Betty Friedan, who's one of the starters of feminism with Feminine Mystique, would disagree with most feminism today. Just read her book. Most feminists have never even read her book. Go read it. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I have quotes from her all the time. And in that book, she talks often about how this is not men's fault. This is not what men did. This is not like, it's our responsibility. And then it all became about how it's men's fault with a lot of people, not everybody, with a lot of people in that movement.
What is the book called?
The Feminine Mystique.
The Feminine Mystique. I'm gonna buy it because it sounds right up my alley.
Betty Friedan. It was back in, I'm gonna misquote it, 50s, 60s, somewhere around there. But it's fascinating. I mean, she's it was one of the times that feminism took another, like there's key points, right? Like there's the suffrage movement, and then after that, it was like the 50s, 60s with Betty Friedan and a bunch of other people. Those were like two of the big times. And then of course it's changed multiple times. There's the 90s and everything else. But that being said, same thing is true for me, by the way. If the thing that brings out my healthy masculinity more than anything is healthy femininity in my life. The most beautiful relationship I've ever been in was with a woman who was very feminine, but out of a lot of insecurity, trauma, pain, etc., acted very masculine at times.
Yes.
And, to clarify, every man has masculine and feminine traits. Every woman has masculine and feminine traits. So I'm not saying that you have to be a man to be masculine, etc. The only reason I say it that way is because the majority of men have majority masculine traits. The majority of women have majority feminine traits. So some of your listeners or viewers might be watching this and they're like, yeah, well, I'm a woman. I'm primarily masculine. Well, that could be true. There is a small minority of women that are primarily masculine and men that are primarily feminine. I'm just talking about the majority here. I'm a primarily masculine guy. She was primarily feminine, but both of our insecurities, trauma, pain would increase the other side of us. So if I went into that mode, I got increasingly feminine. If she went into that mode, she got increasingly masculine. And that's where issues come up in a relationship. When our relationship was going really well, I would say the primary reason it was going really well is because I was living authentically in my masculinity and just able to be that, who I was. And she was doing the same in her primarily feminine energy. And it's the most beautiful thing. And we need that polarity. I think one of the things I'm the most sad about in a lot of society today, not all of it, but a lot of society, is this idea that, like, especially in the feminine world, that like masculinity just needs to be eradicated. Yeah. And that's just not the right answer. That's not going to help the world. It's true not. Healthy masculinity saves people. It fights for people that don't have a voice.
The protector.
It goes to war to make sure that the oppressors don't continue to kill and murder and rape and genocide and everything else. All the people, that is true healthy masculinity. So we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, well, all masculinity needs to go away because of the fact that there's a few guys acting toxic. No. We need to deal with the toxic behaviors, not right. Throw out masculinity with it. And the same thing with femininity. Like, I hear guys talking all the time about how women always do this and they're just out there for validation and they're just out there to try to like mess around with you and manipulate you and everything else. Like, no, those are all traits of toxicity. Again, that's not femininity. A feminine woman does not do that in her core, in her authentic self. It's not a thing. So could masculine power be used in a toxic way? 100%. That's why people get murdered and genocide and rape and everything else. That's what happens. Could feminine power be used in a toxic way? Absolutely.
And it
That's where
has been.
gossip and manipulation and wars start. I mean, most wars start from women, not from men. Like we think
I
it's
think
men because the men are out there fighting, but the men are usually fighting because of a woman. Like look throughout history.
it's
Like
true.
Helen
And
of
if you
Troy is
go
a
back
great
in
example, of
history,
course.
we actually have those times in history where women, you know, eradicate them, burn them, kill them. But we also, then you could go back even farther in history where women were also doing that to men. And we kind of see that cycle, that pattern, where there's an imbalance again. The women against the men, the men against the women. Like it's not the first time we've been here in our history.
And by the way, it's not just women doing it right now. So
No, and
what I'm seeing a lot of
it's
with
also
men that I
against.
work with is that they are feeling like a good amount of women just want to eradicate masculinity, because I'm seeing a lot of that in culture today as well,
Mhm.
especially United States culture. This is not true around the world. I travel a lot, and trust me, there's a lot of places that are not like it is here in the United States. However, there's also the opposite happening. If you look at any of the statistics of men being in long-term relationships, getting married, opting for relationships versus opting to be by themselves, it
Mhm.
is at historic highs how many men are deciding just to be by themselves or with their AI bot or virtual reality or anything else, not
Mm.
actually having a true relationship. So there's not one side to blame, we're both to blame.
We
But
are, as yes.
it's an interesting thing happening where at the end really at the end of the day, like men and women want to be in a relationship with each other. Like we want to build these amazing bonds and relationship and everything else,
Mhm.
but our trauma and pain and hurt and everything else is just keeping us like this of like, well, I don't know, I had a bad experience with a woman one time, so therefore no relationship for me. I'm going to stick
Yeah.
with my A spot. Really? That's the answer? We've seen that movie. We know how it turns out. And then the women saying, well, all men are just dogs and into this and just want sex and blah, blah, blah. So that's enough for me. And then they sit around with their women friends and bitch and moan about how they don't have a boyfriend. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but the only thing that you can do, which is what I tell my guys all the time, there's only one thing that you have control over, and that's your actions. That's it. Your beliefs, your actions, you have total control over. So has that happened to you 24 times? Maybe it has. But if it's happened to you 24 times, you were doing something to attract that energy.
Mhm.
So let's focus more on what you can do to change that attraction of that energy versus blaming the other party or the other gender because they weren't acting the way you wanted them to. That's just insane.
I just had a conversation with someone around because I had found myself after my divorce in a bad relationship. And so then I took time off to be celibate, to focus on myself, to kind of figure out, like, okay, like, how do I not do that again? How do I choose better? And do you find that that works for men as well? Like from a man's standpoint, like if you were to step back and be celibate and focus on yourself and why am I choosing the wrong women? How do I step into and reclaim more of an embodied manhood, like masculine energy, before you dive back into another relationship? Does that work for men?
Absolutely does. So one of the biggest passions that I have in my work that
Hmm.
I don't see happening right now is helping divorced men create a version 2.0 vision of their life. None of the people that work with divorced men are doing that. So there's like divorce financial coaches that will help you with wealth, which I can do. I've been a financial planner for almost 2 decades. I know that piece. I get that. There are dating coaches, let's say, that show
Hmm.
you how to show up online well and do whatever. I know plenty of dating coaches. There's like more business coaches that will focus on that. The majority of help for men has to do with either getting a six pack or adding money to your bank. Those are the two things that very, very few men are talking about anything spiritual, emotional, mental, or anything else. So that being said, I think that that's extremely important. So I wrote a book last year called The Five Biggest Traps That Men Face When Going Through Divorce and How to Triumph Over Them. For your audience, if they want a copy, I'm happy to send them a
Yes.
free copy if they'd like. All they have to do is just go connect with me on Instagram and send me a message, and I'll send it to them. Okay. So you can add that
Beautiful.
to the show notes later if you want. I'm Josh the Derelict on Instagram. Josh the Derelict. So the reason I bring up that book is that point number 5, which is the most important point, is getting in relationships too soon. Or messing up your previous relationship. So I talk about 2 different things in that chapter. I talk about number 1, the relationship with your now ex, and number 2, whatever next romantic partnership, relationship, whatever you want to call it, you're going to get into. And when I wrote this book, I went out and interviewed a couple dozen people, friends, colleagues, business partners, attorneys, therapists. I kind of tried to get a gamut of people. And I asked them, either for your own divorce, what did you experience as being kind of the biggest mistake or two? Or for your clients, if you work with people that are getting divorced, what do you notice? And overwhelmingly, 100% of people, this was their top thing. And everybody that had been divorced said the exact same thing. And they said, I got into a relationship too soon. Now, what's interesting about that is that the person who was still in relationship in their marriage and got in a relationship said that, but also the person that got divorced waited a year or even 2 years and got in a relationship also said that. I was like, how is that possible? So I get it with the person that, like, I don't know, maybe you're cheating on the person you start a relationship. Yeah, that's not a good way to start a relationship, but really a year or 2 later. And then I realized something. It has nothing to do with timing, Tamar. Nothing. It has to do with how much have you processed what you've gone through? How much have you dated yourself? It's a term I like to use. How have you come to a point where you really love yourself and you have a really good relationship with your higher power or universe or God or whatever you want to call it? Unless you have a good relationship with those 2 entities, you have no business being in a relationship with anybody else. None.
I love that you bring that into your work because I see that a lot in women and men, that we don't take the time to really get to know ourselves, to really love ourselves. And I did the same thing.
And then it just hurts
That's
even more. I mean, I've
it
done the same thing
does.
too. It just hurts
It
even
totally
more.
does. It does. Yeah.
Like, I've
And
had
you can make your own
relationships
decisions.
post divorce that were more difficult when they ended than my
Oh,
marriage, which was way longer and
yeah.
produced children.
Yes.
Why? Well, because I thought I'd worked on myself, or maybe I didn't work on myself, or maybe I jumped in, or maybe I did a trauma bond, or maybe I did a rebound, or maybe I did whatever, fill in the blank. I've done all of them. And then, interesting, this relationship doesn't fill the empty part of my soul that I thought would fill. Well, why? Because there's only one thing that will fill the empty part of your soul. That's love for yourself and love with your higher power. That's it. That's it. That's it, period. End of sentence. We can all have relationships and everybody else that validate us and love us and everything else. You know, maybe after this podcast, we become friends and then we validate each other and we encourage each other and everything else. All of that is good. I'm not dismaying all of that. I'm just saying that none of it is lasting. None of it will actually fill that part in your soul unless you love yourself and you love your higher power. That's it. Period.
Yes. That's when I found peace. Same thing. And it could take longer than what you think. If you jump that's kind of what I found. If I jumped from one to the other, I didn't take time to heal myself. Then it took like 3 years later. I'm like, why am I still not over that? Because I didn't take time to go through it and heal, like to really focus on me. Yeah.
And
Wow.
even if you do, it's not like a full stop, like it's never going to happen. Like, I'll give you an example. So I went through my divorce. Before my divorce was finalized, I ended up just meeting this woman randomly. And, I didn't like date her or anything while I was still waiting for my divorce to finalize, because that was just important to me. I'm not judging anybody that does. I'm just saying it was important to me. And then it gets finalized and we kind of date for a while, but like it was clearly a trauma bond rebound situation. And we kind of went off and on for couple years, and then it finally just ended. And that was really difficult for me, because I realized that the validation I was seeking from her, the validation that I was originally seeking from my wife, and the validation I was seeking from her, I still couldn't get. So that's when I decided to do what we were talking about. And I loved your definition of celibate. Like, celibate's not just refraining from sex. Celibate is refraining from that entire situation, right? So I did the same thing. I didn't date. I focused on myself. I focused on loving myself. I went to a lot of therapy, did a lot of coaching, did all the things to try to make myself a complete loving human being that I could handle, because I really didn't love myself a whole lot before that. Went through all of that, Tamar, and that was a couple years of that. Then met a woman who rocked my world in the best way possible. And it was the best relationship I've ever had until it wasn't. The first year and a half, wonderful. 6 months after that, not so much, because things
Yeah.
just started coming up, and it's a whole long story and I don't need to get into it. But the reason I bring it up is that there was still stuff, even though I thought like I was golden, that came up in that I didn't realize came up in that until it ended once again. And then that rocked me again. And I was like, fuck, it's just going to be this continual thing. But what I realized in that moment is that like that is a perfect moment not to be shameful of yourself, because
Mhm.
that's just realizing how much the journey has come. Because if I go back and I look at that relationship I just mentioned, it's the best relationship I've ever had. And the one before that was as well. And the one before that was as well. So I'm progressing in a certain area. I'm
Yes.
still in my 40s and single, but it doesn't matter because every relationship I have keeps getting better. And at the end of the day, I don't need a relationship. I'm not gonna fall in line with this American codependent, I need you,
Mhm.
without you I'm gonna die bullshit that everybody's
Yes.
singing and preaching all the time, because it's a great way to just fill you in an empty way, just to pretend like it's gonna take care of everything when it won't.
Yeah, and I think we do have that. I remember growing up, and I don't know if it's the fairy tales. I don't know if it's just what we're taught here. It's like I'm going to grow old with somebody, and we're never going to be apart, right? We're going to sleep in the same bed for 80 years, and we're always going to be at each other's side. I've had the total opposite experience of that, but it's eye-opening because now, like if I wasn't with my partner now, I would be fine by myself. Like I would really be okay. Not that that is like I want to share love and but I could totally be okay by myself, and I would be happy by myself. So it's such a huge moment when you come to that awareness. I am totally good with whatever that codependency that we're taught is love here. Like whenever you move past that, it's really I think when we step into our power and our truth, because then we know who we are as a human being.
Absolutely. And some people go too far on the independent side and they're like, well, I just don't need
Mm.
anybody. And like I
Right,
was mentioning, guys that are just choosing not to date right now would be in that
right.
example. Like I just don't
Mm.
need anybody, anything, anywhere. I'm just going to be, it's like the American cowboy, right? Like I'll just go do everything myself, which I think is an interesting analogy because cowboys were never by themselves. Like they were always in posses. They always had other people supporting them and helping them and everything else. So this idea of like this individual hero cowboy, like that wasn't even how it worked. Like they were together all the time. I don't understand. So there's that side. And then there's the other side of like, well, I need you. And if you're not here, I'm going to die, right? The codependent
Right.
side. And healthy is not in the middle. Healthy is like outside of the whole spectrum in the first place. Healthy is what's called interdependence, which is I'm healthy, you're healthy. We come together as two healthy individuals to
Mhm.
build something healthy together. Either one of us would be fine by ourselves. That's how you know it's going to work.
Yeah.
I'm fine by myself. You're fine by yourself. So it will always work. And here's what I mean by that. It doesn't mean that we will never break up. If we break up, it still works because it means that we were living authentically ourselves and decided that we're better separate living authentically ourselves,
Yes.
right? Instead
Yes.
of
And I
letting
think
all the
that's
stuff
beautiful.
get in the way. What was that?
I said that, and that's beautiful. Like that's a beautiful type of relationship to be in. Um, and women feel the same way. There are a lot of women who feel like, I can do it on my own now. I don't need a man. Have you heard the one where the woman says, if there was a bear or a man in the woods, which one would you run away from, or which one would you choose? Something like that. And the women, I would choose to come up against a bear than a man. It's something along those lines, and it's just it shows the disconnect because we
It's
do.
a woman that's convinced herself that a man is more dangerous than a bear, which is
Yes,
really a sad reality.
it is. And so this is what I think we're trying to heal in this world is this feeling of, you know, I don't need a man in my life to sustain me, to make me happy, right? But I choose to be with a man because I want intimacy and to share love and to build something with someone at my side. It's a choice, not a have to. And I think that
It,
that's the
it's
beauty in it.
I was just going to say it's the exact same thing for men.
Mhm.
Because if that analogy played true with men, the question would be, do you choose the woman or do you choose the AI or the pornography? And
Right.
most men
Yes.
choose the AI or the pornography. Like they
Yes.
choose
Yes.
some
So
sort
scary.
of fantasy, artificial. And I'm not saying women don't do this. I'm just saying for men that it's easier to pick some sort of fantasy, something that is that we think are going to meet our needs that we
Right.
have, whatever those are, than getting messy in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because we as guys historically aren't very good at relationship. So we're like, if we could just pick something that's just gonna like do it for us, then I don't have to actually like get messy with this person and their emotions, and they talk so much and they
The
cry. Oh my
emotions.
God, right? So
Sensitive
it's the,
tool.
it's the same thing. It's both of those reactions are out of hurt and pain and not actually dealing with your stuff, because the
Mm-hmm.
woman has convinced herself that a man is more dangerous than a bear, which is insane, literally insane. And a
Totally.
man has convinced himself that a robot is healthier than a female human, which is
Yeah.
insane. They're both
Mm.
insane, yet we
Yes.
do them.
Mm-hmm. And this is where we are right now in humanity. Yeah. And
This doesn't mean that
the whole
everybody
robot.
does this at all times. We all make good
Yes.
decisions as well. But what it means
Mm.
is like, what I would love to see us get away from is just the polarity of like, well, it's all this person's fault or it's all no, it's not.
Mm-mm. It's never
And let's
one.
definitely not blame like the true authentic nature of masculinity and femininity, because it's definitely not that fault.
Oh, true
So are we
masculinity
all
is
acting out
so
of
beautiful.
wounding and pain and doing things wrong? Sure we are.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
that's what we got to deal with.
Right. Yeah. True masculine energy is so gorgeous. Like it's so sexy. I hope that women can see it. They can open their eyes and they can see what true masculine energy looks and feels like. And the same for
Oh,
the men.
here's the thing though. This has been my experience with women, even women that are like very, very bitter against men and hate all men and, all the people that are like men are the problem and all that sort of stuff. I still watch them. And if there's a man doing something, some sort of healthy masculine around them, they still know, like, it's still like their ears, like, they're still like,
I still recognize
what's
it.
going on over there? Right. It's like this whole idea. I don't know, maybe this is a bad analogy, but it's like this whole thing about dad bods, right? That's been around for years, and about how everybody loves dad bods, which is all complete bullshit. We only say that because of the fact that we don't want to get in shape and we don't want to do the effort to do like I am a massive fat, like you can see I'm not fat, but I'm a massive fat kid inside. Like I have an internal huge, massive fat kid that just wants to eat Oreos and Doritos and Taco Bell all day long. Like he's still, as much as I try to squelch him down and as much as I've trained him not to pop up, he's still there. He's still there.
Mm,
So it takes a lot of fucking work and energy and effort to look the way I look.
yeah.
And that the only reason I'm saying that is not out of ego. It's because of the fact that I'm proud of the fact that I put in the work, right? It's the same thing here in relationships. Like,
Yeah.
yes, you're going to have issues where you had a bunch of bad experiences with guys or you had a bunch of bad experiences with women. Great. Get over it, deal with it, and realize that a lot of the problems you had were you.
Mm.
They weren't the other people. Who was it? I think it was maybe Mark Twain that said, what was the quote? He said, oh man, I'm going to butcher it now. It's basically like something to the effect of, I realized that most of the problems in my life never happened. Something like that. Like we just convince ourselves so much in our brain. Here's
So
another one that I love. Tony Robbins says, it's not, we don't experience life. We experience, I'm bad at doing quotes today. Goodness sake. It's something like, we don't experience life. We experience basically our perception of life. And the whole idea is like, there is no one true experience. It's our experience of our experience. This is the same, by the way, and I'm
mm,
sure you've noticed this as well,
mm,
Tamar, is that no memory is accurate. Think about that statement for a second.
yeah.
There's not one memory that's accurate. Why? Because we will remember something based on where we're at in our life right now. So I will
Yeah.
remember the exact same thing today different than I will remember it tomorrow based on what's going on in my life. So
Mm,
that doesn't change what actually happened.
yeah.
It changes my experience or my perception of what happened. So why is that important? Well, the reason I found it to be important is because we don't want to ignore the past and ignore what happened. We want to embrace it and be able to figure out how to move on for it. But we also got to just like chill out a little bit on pointing the finger, because none of us are right. Like we all just have a different perception. We have a different experience. It's the classic idea that a crime is committed and 12 people in the court say 12 different stories of what happened. And they were
Right.
all there, but they had different vantage points. They had different things going on in their life. They were distracted by different things. So it doesn't make any of them untrue. It's that they all had a slightly different perception of what occurred. And I know for myself, I lived many years of my life just like with blinders on of like, well, no, I mean, I'm accurate and I don't have this perception. Yeah, yeah, I do. I have perceptions about everything. And you got to be open about that. Otherwise you can't change. You can't move on.
Yeah, it's the lens that we see through on any given day. That makes sense. When men are seeing through, well, let's just say the lens that we see something through, like you're seeing a woman through the lens of your divorce, your like what you've been through. Can you give me a couple ways on how you could shift that when you find yourself looking through a lens that is more damaging than good? Does that make sense? How
It
I'm
does.
describing
It's a
it?
great question. And one of the ways that I do it is I try to remind myself that it's not fair for me to put past experiences on a current person. It's not fair to them, no matter who it is that I meet. What it also does as well for people that are struggling with bitterness and resentment and anger towards, let's say, an ex, whether that's,
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, spouse, whoever, doesn't matter, some sort of long-term relationship with somebody that you loved. It's really easy to move that on to the next person or do the opposite, which is just equally as unhealthy and expect the other person to fix all of that, which also won't happen. So if somebody's in that state, what I also like to encourage them is to realize the only thing you're doing by projecting that onto the current person is you're actually giving your ex more power. You're giving your ex a lot more power than they deserve in your life. Because if I'm still making decisions based on my experiences with my ex, I don't want to say my ex is winning per se, but I'm giving her the power that she doesn't deserve. Like I escaped that toxic relationship. Why would I bring that toxic relationship to my next relationship and make it toxic?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make any logical sense.
Right.
Now, of course, it's much easier said than done,
Yeah.
but there's a couple of things that I try to remember. Number one, it's not fair to the current person to bring your past stuff to them. It's just not. Go deal with it yourself. And if you're not able to do that, you should probably not be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Just take some time. Like people aren't going anywhere. People are going to procreate till the end of time. Like they will still be there. You'll figure it out. And you're not too old. People meet people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s all the time. You'll be fine. Just take the moment. Doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're 60. Take the moment. Take longer than you think you need. Because the only thing that's going to happen from my experience is the longer that I've taken to really work on myself and everything else, the more secure I get in my masculinity and who I am and everything else, the more I don't have to look. Because women that have strong, high feminine energy that have worked on
Mm-hmm.
themselves
Will
just
be
get
attracted.
attracted to me because we're attracted to the same thing. Like it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to like go force it.
Yeah.
So I would say those two things. Number one is that realize like what's fair for the current person. What's not fair is to bring your past stuff of a relationship onto them. So if you can't help but doing that in that relationship, then leave the relationship, go take some time to figure yourself out, and then come back or don't go back. Go find a new one. And then the second piece is you are respecting, encouraging, and actually giving a lot of credit to your ex when you're bringing their stuff into the current relationship, much more than you want to. It's amazing. It's like the classic story of the kid that's physically abused growing up and they say, I will never, ever, ever do this to anyone again. And then they become an abusive parent. Why? Because they never actually healed from that stuff. And they brought it into the current relationship. And as much as they hate it and despise it, and they feel shame over it, and they feel like they're a worthless human being, they have no choice because of the fact that they're still just bringing it into the new relationship. That's the exact same thing that happens when people bring that toxic stuff from their past into their present. And that's not fair for the current person. It's just not. So if you are not a complete self-absorbed, egotistical, narcissistic asshole, then don't do it.
I have met people who have done that, and I'm sure that I have done that in my past as well. I've brought in those
Oh, by the way,
fears.
everything that I say, I'm like, yes, I've done this. Yes, I've done this. Yes, I've done this.
Yes.
This is not a guy that's got it figured out. This is a guy who's continually figuring it out, which is why people work with me, because you don't want to work with somebody who has it figured out, because they're full of shit. I don't have it figured out, but I figured a lot of it out through pain and sorrow and hurt and triumph.
Yes. And that's where the integrity comes from, right? It's because you've been through it. Like when you go through something and you've lived it and you've embodied it, you've gone through it, you're able to really understand someone else who's also going through that, which I think is where we call it the superpower. Like that's a superpower. In the end, it is a wound, but when you heal it, it becomes like a sacred wound that you get to share with other people who have also gone through that. Um, and that's, I think, very sacred and very powerful. I do have a question. When the masculine heals, when a man heals, how can they support women's sovereignty rather than threaten it?
Describe
Does that
women's sovereignty for me first before I answer the question.
Sure. Sovereignty for me is um, it's really standing in your own power. Sovereignty is knowing who you are, living your truth, not allowing someone else to rule over you, but being in your own queen energy, really is how I describe it. You don't need to source your energy from outside of yourself. Like everything that you need is within you.
Thank you. Thank you for defining that, because I would have defined it differently. So
Okay, how would you
I would
define it?
say, well, just
I
the
would love
word
to hear how.
sovereignty in general implies like ruler over. And I
A
didn't
ruler
think
over
that's what you were
yourself.
saying. So I wanted to make sure that you weren't saying that, because I don't support women's sovereignty, just like I don't support men's sovereignty, because if that means ruling over anybody, I don't believe in that. So I
Right.
believe there's
Okay.
one sovereign presence. It's the universe, God, higher power, whatever you want to call it. There is sovereignty. It's not us. Humans are not sovereign. But the way you define it, yes, great question. So that's why
I'm
the
glad we
language thing. I
clarified
wanted to make
that.
sure I wasn't misunderstanding you. I would actually say it's the same, I think, for men towards women as it is for women towards men. And I think it's very, very simple. I think for men, it is encouraging, supporting, and loving a woman to be her most authentic feminine self, and encouraging her to do that in any stretch of the imagination. Now, does that mean that she's always going to be out there doing everything by herself? No, because that's not healthy. So it doesn't mean that she doesn't have power. Of course she does. Feminine
Right.
power is stronger than masculine power will ever be. So anyone that says masculine have the, advantage in power, not true. Feminine power is the strongest force in the universe. Masculine power tends to come out with physical strength. Therefore, it's easier to see sometimes. A guy fighting a war, a guy beating somebody up, a guy abusing somebody. Like there's physical power to that, right? Whereas women's power is not. It's more emotional, it's more nurturing, it's more spiritual, it's more on that side of things. So it's just not as evident sometimes because it's not as physical, right? But it's a much stronger power. So where men, I think, get themselves into trouble is the same we were talking about earlier, is they try to squash that. They try to squash that feminine power. If a woman's out there and she's trying to be as authentically feminine as possible, the best thing that you can do as a masculine man is to encourage that. Because the more her femininity grows, and I'm not saying to do this for selfish reasons, but the added benefit is that the more her femininity grows, the more masculine you become, and the more sexy that is, the more attractive it is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with women. Women often get themselves in trouble for expecting men to be women. We're not women, despite what 2025 might tell you. We're not. We think differently. We speak differently. We deal with problems differently, right? Like, a good way that I've heard it before is that women communicate for connection, and then men communicate for a solution.
So true.
So I, as a man, if I come to you, let's say you're my partner, and I come to you as a feminine woman, and I'm communicating with you, I probably want you to give me like a solution or like an idea of what to do. Not in like a nagging, why don't you do this sort of way. That can be wrong as well. But just like, no, I have a problem and looking for a solution because I'm a man. That's how I communicate. Whereas when you communicate with me, you want connection. So the moment I start giving you solutions, oldest trick in the book, every woman shuts down because they don't want a solution. Like, I can figure out my own damn solution, bro. I don't need your masculine help with my solution. Well, that's not a man being chauvinistic. It's a man communicating the way he knows how to communicate, because that's how he wants to be communicated with. So this is, older than dirt, but one of the best books ever written on it is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, which got a lot of grief, and a lot of people say it's cliche and everything else. Honestly, if you've never read the book, go read it. I read it for the very first time a year ago, and it's old. And I realized how much wisdom there is in that book, because he talks a lot about the ways that we communicate. And the reason that men and women get in so much trouble communicating all the time is we expect the other gender to communicate like we do. So if I come to you with all this stuff, well, you want to connect with me. So you're trying to connect with me, and then you're saying all these different things to connect with me. And I'm like, I just need a solution here. Like, why are you trying to connect with me, right? Like, it frustrates me. And then you come to communicate with me, to connect with me, and I'm offering solutions. And you're like, I'm just trying to communicate. I'm just trying to connect with you. Why are you offering solutions, right? So if we can just do a little bit more of the back and forth, I think that, I don't even know if I answered your original question. I got off on a topic.
I don't know either, but this is so true.
I remember the original question. So yes,
Okay.
so for a man, the best thing that he can do is to encourage that woman to live in her authentic feminine self, because the more she lives in her authentic feminine self, the more powerful she becomes. And it might not be the power that she's convinced that she needs or other people are telling her that she needs, but that could just be wrong. Like, that could be power that's not actually helpful for her, right? The whole idea, I think, one of the beautiful things about feminism is it's trying to get women living authentically powerful in and of their own feminine energy. I think that's where it came from. It's turned into a lot of other things that aren't that anymore. And I think that that's where a lot of people get into trouble. Is like, let's just tackle this one real quick. Men and women are not equal. We never will be. I'm so tired of people saying, well, we just want equality. Equality is bullshit. We're not the same. Men are different than women are. They just are. This is not even a gender conversation right now. I'm just talking biological male, biological female. We are different. We are different the way we process things. We're different the way that we communicate things. We're different in all the way back to millions of years of evolution, or whatever you believe in, as far as like what we needed to do. Or were we protecting? Were we hunting? Were we gathering? What were we doing? So because of that, to try to pretend like that's not different and that we should all be equal is bullshit. And it hurts all of us, because no matter what, no woman will ever be able to play LeBron James one-on-one with basketball and win. It will not happen. I don't care who you are. It will not happen, ever. Now, does that mean that women are worse than men? No. It just means that men are more built that way, more built for strength and physical things, everything else like we were talking about. And there's plenty of things that men won't be able to do, like childbirth is a great example. There's no way we'd be able to do that. Like, we get a cold and we cry for weeks. So like, there's just no possible way. We're like really strong and really weak all at the same time. It's funny. But my point with all this is, if you're trying to encourage a woman, and you're trying to encourage a woman to be authentically feminine and in and of herself, that's what you want to encourage. You want to encourage that femininity, because through that femininity and through that authenticity, the more a woman becomes more authentic in her feminine nature, guess what? The more power she's going to feel, because that is her power. Her power is not, oh, I need to go be strong and play basketball with LeBron James. That's not going to make her feel powerful anyway. I don't know why there's this idea in society right now that women need to do the same things men do. That's BS.
Yeah, we don't have the
It's
same
like,
energy. We can't,
no,
we're not
and it's
structured the
not
same. Our
healthy. Like
hormones are not the same.
I heard somebody say this the other day, and they were talking about, like, if you really want equality in the workplace, then that means that you'd have to fire like half of the bricklayers because like 90% of them are men or something like that. Well, why? Well, could we just be okay with the fact that men are better at laying brick? Like, what's the big deal about that?
Right. Yeah.
Can we just admit that women are better at things like nursing? Because they
Mm.
are, because they're more nurturing and they're more caring and they're more loving. Does that mean that men can't do it? No, absolutely not. Of course they can. I have plenty of male nurse friends, but women are better at it because they're more inclined to do it because that's who they are. That's what they do.
Nurture. Yeah.
Yeah, they nurture. Guys are better at
Mhm.
bricklaying because guess what? I'd rather just put a fucking brick down, not have to think about anything and have any sort of relationship. Fine.
Communication. No communication. Just
Yeah,
lay
and that's
brick.
okay. It doesn't mean that like we have to have 50-50 genders in both of those occupations for all of us to
Mm.
feel equal. No.
Right.
What needs to happen is that if a woman living in her authentic feminine nature really fits with nurse, then let me encourage her to be a nurse. I'm not going to go encourage her to be a CEO because it's not her nature.
Mm.
And again, I'm not saying women shouldn't be CEOs. There's so many clips in here that could be taken out of context. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if she's living in her authentic nature, just like a guy, and it's really, really simple for all the guys listening. This is very, very simple. Just encourage the woman to encourage her own feminine traits.
Hmm.
Encourage her when she's nurturing. Encourage her when she's helpful. Encourage her when she's communicative.
Right.
Encourage her when she's communicative just to being communicative, and shut your goddamn mouth and don't give her a solution because she doesn't want one. Unless she asks for it, then she does.
I mean, she's looking for intimacy and
Yeah,
connection.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Percent. Again, going back to that relationship that I was in, it was probably the first time in my life that, like, we were, as you can tell, I'm a semi-animated person. This is like 1/10 of my normal energy. She has such a calming presence. I'm like actually calmer than I normally am, which you might not believe. You're like, oh God, I want to see you normally. But we were a very intense couple, very opinionated, very extreme, yelling, laughing, just everything all the time. But she was like, I'm a very opinionated person also, in case you couldn't tell. And I remember still to this day, one of the things that stood with me the most that I continue to move into future relationships is how often I'd get fired up about something, be really opinionated about it, and just be like all up in my masculine energy about something. And how, like, oftentimes, like, right in the middle of it, she would just like look at me like fucking drooling. Like, you were so goddamn sensitive. Like, she would say that to me all the time. And I was like, really? Because I had been so trained in so many other relationships that that was bad, that that was evil, that that was
Mm.
chauvinistic, that that was toxic. Men are not supposed to be powerful like that. And
Mm.
to have a woman just like really hit her femininity meant a lot to me. And I think as guys, we can do the same thing for women because women are desperately searching for this right now. Because there's so many
Yes.
guys that have no idea how to do this. There's so many women that have no idea how to do this.
Well, that was going to be my next question. How can women like kind of support men in stepping more into theirs? Like, 'cause we want men in their masculine energy. We want men to really claim that. So how do women do that for men?
I think it's the same answer. Just encourage his
Mhm.
masculinity when you see those things, right? Just encourage
Yeah.
when he's courageous, encourage
Yeah.
when he's confident, encourage when he takes action, encourage when he goes and does stuff, encourage when he gets things done. Like, those are all masculine traits. Again, we all have
Mhm.
both traits, but those are all masculine traits. So when he does those things, encourage that.
Yeah.
Don't
Yes.
nag. Don't be, like, don't
Nagging
tell
is
him
the
to change.
worst.
Neither one of us need to tell each other that we need to change. We just need to
Yes.
encourage our own traits that are healthy.
Yes.
And you know
That's
what?
it.
There's
That's
gonna
a
be
good point.
times where I have to put on my feminine energy, and it's healthy for me to do so. And there's times where you have
Mhm.
to put on your masculine energy, and it's healthy for you to do so.
Mhm.
But in general, I try to live in as much masculine energy as possible. But, sometimes when my kids are over here and my two little girls are doing their thing, 8 and 10, like I got to put on the feminine energy. Otherwise I'm going to be in trouble. Because I'm
Yes,
not
with two
going to
little
do well
girls.
in my masculine energy, because my masculine energy is like, stop fighting. What the hell's the problem? This is the solution. You know what I mean? Like that. And that's not what they need.
Man up. Don't
Yeah.
cry.
Right. Yeah. Stop crying.
Yeah, I heard that a lot when I was little. But a lot of times, and I think this is where women, we both come from that era where a lot of our parents did things like that. They were like, "Don't cry," and so you had to hold everything in. And I think this is where we have that disconnect until we really work through that.
It's very true. And here's the other thing for women with men is not just encouraging their masculine energy, but it's also just encouraging them to be real.
Mm.
Like I think one of the saddest things right now is that the highest suicide rate is men 35 to 55.
Yes, that's a very good thing to bring up right now.
These are men
Yes.
and I'm right in the middle of that. These are men in the supposedly the prime of their life, right? They've maybe already had some success with business and career, maybe had some success with family, maybe have kids, maybe been married, maybe been divorced, but like they've had things in their life where this is the time where life's supposed to be really good in a lot of ways.
Mm.
And they end it.
Yeah.
Like, why? At the prime of their life would they end it? Well, it's because guys don't know how to process this stuff, and they don't know
Right.
who to talk to about it. And they're told from an entire society that you need to just man up and stop crying and pick yourself up by your bootstraps and jump back on the horse again, and all the different phrases that we have to say, stop being a little wimp. And I feel shame when I'm a wimp. I feel shame when I fail. I feel shame when I fall off the horse and have to get back on it. And all of those things, a lot of guys get through that and they're very successful and they have a lot of wins in their life. And a lot of guys don't, because a lot of guys are like, I just don't even want to try anymore. It's too hard. I know it's really hard being a woman. It's also really hard being a guy. And we live in a
I
society where I think a lot of people think like, well, being a man is easy. Like it's a patriarchy. And like, I'm the problem, right? Like I'm a middle-aged, successful white guy. So I'm all of the problems of the world, according to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But I'll just tell you what, there's a lot of people in this demographic that life is very hard for. If it wasn't, why would suicides rates be the highest among that group of people?
Yes.
Because we don't know how to talk about things. We are not naturally like women who we just talk to each other about things. We don't open up about things. We just like stuff it in because we realize we got to like protect and we got to provide and we got to do stuff. And like
Hmm.
we can't take this moment to be weak at any moment ever. And that's really sad. And it's literally killing millions of men by doing that. So if I were talking to women, my encouragement to them would be encourage guys to open up about these things. Encourage guys that, and here's the biggest thing if you're a woman, if you're going to encourage that, you better well step up and actually be supportive when it happens. Because
Yes.
if your man opens his mouth and says, this really frustrates me, or I can't believe it when you do this, or I'm really hurt when you do this, and you get defensive and bitter and angry and naggy, he's never going to do it again.
He will
You get
never
one
open up
shot with
again.
guys, most guys.
Yes.
One shot.
Yes.
You fuck it up, never again.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you can't just encourage it. You have to actually be able to be open to accept it.
Right. And I think women don't know how to. I am not putting all women in this category, obviously, but a lot of times women don't know how to hold that space for a man either. So I think that's really important for women to also hear, because we have to, as women, know how to hold that energetic space for men to be able to open up and access that place. And this is why, as I said, I'm such an advocate for men as well, because I know a lot of men have, yeah, I've seen a lot of this in my groups.
Well, and there's a couple like just real quick, as I know we're
Yes.
probably ending here soon, but just a couple like quick communication tips that are
Hmm,
helpful
please.
is
Yes.
just ask It's really the simple. People make it more complicated than it needs to be. Just ask the person you're having the conversation what they need from you. That's it. So one simple way of doing that. We're partners. We're about to have a conversation. You're telling me stuff. And I simply look at you and I say, what do you need from me right now? Do you need me to listen to you and just hear you? Or are you looking for some sort of advice or practical things that you could do? Just that simple. Now, everybody doesn't always know what they need from you. So be okay if they don't have an answer, but just try to make it as simple as possible. I would say the majority of the time, if I asked you that question, you would know what you're looking for, right?
Right.
You would know, well, I just need somebody to hear me or to listen, or I really would love some advice. I've actually started doing this with my guy friends as well, because sometimes like a man shows up and I don't realize right away that they're in their feminine energy and they just need to talk and they're just trying to connect. I have one specific friend from months ago that I think of that I finally realized he did this. Whereas a lot of the times in our conversations, he showed up with his feminine energy. And I'm not sure if it's just because I have a lot of masculinity or he felt comfortable with me bringing his feminine energy. I'm not really sure why, but it took me a lot of conversations to realize that's what was happening, because I would constantly go to advice, problem solving, get this, and then he would get really frustrated and defensive and shut down everything else. I was like, what the hell? Like, what? He's bringing me all. And then it was like several conversations later where I realized, I was like, oh, his feminine energy is coming out right now. This is not what he needs. So I started instituting that with them, and the communication got so much better. So just simple things like that. Like, what do you need from me? Do you just need me to hear you? Do you want some advice?
And that does work with men. I do this with my boyfriend. Whenever there's things that come up, I ask that question. What do you need from me? Like, how can I better support you? Like, is it to listen? Is there something you need me to help, with at this time? Like, and that may be putting me a little bit more in my masculine energy, but it's also like, I want to be able to give what that person needs at that moment.
And here's my encouragement to anyone listening to this: when you get into the situation where somebody doesn't know what they need, because I've been in that situation several times, it is better to default to listen than give advice. It just is. My grandpa used to say to me, God made you with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
I like it.
And I think it's really true. Like, we should listen twice as much as we
More than
speak.
we
So
speak.
if you're in doubt or the other person doesn't know what they need, then just be there. It's the difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is that I see something that happened to you and I'm like, oh, poor girl. That's sympathy.
Right.
Empathy is I see something that happened to you, I sit with you in it, and I feel it with you. Totally different.
Yeah.
And that's all we need, is just a little empathy and a little understanding of like, what do you need right now? Okay, let me just sit with you. I'm good.
Yeah, beautiful. Very important. And learning communication in a healthy sense of communication and emotional intelligence.
For sure.
Yeah. Josh, thank you so much for joining me today to have this conversation. I would love to direct anyone to you. If, your book, as Josh mentioned, if you would like a copy of his book, I'm going to put the link to his website and his Instagram and all the ways that you can follow him in the show notes, that you can be sure to catch Josh and everything that he's doing. And I am really looking forward also to reading your book. I think it's something that's beneficial for all of us, whether men or women.
I appreciate that. And also, just as a little teaser, within the next couple months, my book comes out as well, which I'm really excited about. Been working on it for 4 years, I think.
Please let me know when that comes out.
It's going to be
What
great.
is the name of
It's
it?
called
And where would they
it's called
find it?
the Gospel of an Ex-Derelict: Fight,
Okay.
Fail, Find Manhood. And it's
Ooh.
all like a personal, it's kind of like a self-help personal memoir style idea of men going through tragedy and trying to find their own masculinity. So everything we talked about today. So I'm really excited for that too.
Beautiful. I'm
But yeah,
excited for it as well.
the best place too, just for everybody, read the show notes, but the best place to reach out to me is on Instagram. Because if you message me there, I'll message you back. I message a ton of people every single day on there. So I love connecting with people there.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you again, Josh. Sorry to keep you over, but thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me on, Tamar. I appreciate it.
Thank you.